Ronnie. Welcome to Ronnie Rambles, and I'm back in my dark room, as you can see. My kids are back from their trip to their grandparents' house, and we have a full house again. So this is the only room I can kind of hide away in and get some quietness. But yes, anyway, let me kick off this week. I have a kind of a fun podcast planned. I feel like I'm finding my groove. I have yet again 3 things I want to talk about. So, real quick updates in my world. I had a pretty good week. I Today was brutal, and it's only 8 a.m. But today I went to the gym early, and I just was like mentally and physically just fatigued. You ever have those days where like just walking just requires too much energy sometimes, and I just feel like my shoulders are slouched. I'm just like, oh, all right. So I went to the gym. I went through the motions, just kept it light and did the workout with the group, but it really was, maybe I gave it 40% effort. I'm not going to lie. And then to hit my run streak, I just did like a nice slow recovery mile at the end. And this is one of those days where I do what I can when I can, right? So I went, I kept up my habit, I kept up my streak, and I still moved. It was better than not going at all. And I feel like some days you're just going to have that. I did start food journaling this week and kind of put out a challenge for anybody who wants to join me. And the challenge is to just food journal, which I know seems silly, but sometimes this is how I kind of snap myself back into kind of a more structured, kind of accountable food situation. Otherwise, I tend to, especially when things get crazy and classes are starting up in, I think, 2 weeks, and I'm teaching 6 classes at the community college. So life's going to get really busy and overwhelming. And I find that when I give myself just that little bit of extra structure and accountability, I tend not to just go crazy, which is something that has the potential of happening with me and food, because it is the natural way that I stress release. So when I set up this challenge for myself, I just go, okay, I'm just going to keep a food journal and try to peel away any like targets of calories or worrying about certain macros at the beginning. I just go, let me just get back into the habit of just keeping the journal. And I can't recommend that enough. Don't think, oh, I'm only going to eat 1,200 calories a day, or I'm only going to do this, or I'm going to keep just get into the habit of keeping the journal as step one. Give it a couple days, if not a whole week. Then start adding on more like goals. Like I want a protein goal or a calorie goal or whatever it is that you have. And then probably this weekend or this coming week, I'll start kind of more closely monitoring my macros and trying to actually hit my protein goals and stuff like that. So I did create a new calculator on Greenlight Bites, and I'm thinking about devoting maybe a whole podcast in the future just to my experience with macros. So if that's something that's interesting to you guys, just let me know. And I can kind of give my insight. And I've had a few different coaches, so I've seen a few different styles of how to macro count. And then, of course, I have my own tips and kind of figured out what worked for me because I had to make it my own. And I'm a big believer in you have to make anything your own. That's Weight Watchers worked for me because I learned from them and then I adopted it into my own style. And I think that's really important when you're trying to learn new eating habits. So I did mention my run streak is intact. I'm on day 152. So I'm doing good. I was just talking to a friend this morning, and I think I really want to hit a year. I know, like I have like a lot of time to go, but I think it's just really, really cool to be able to say that I ran at least a mile in some way, shape, or form 365 days in a row. So that's my new goal. I'm on a day 152. So going through the winter will probably be tough. So I'm going to need this is why I do this, because I'm going to need this outlet to kind of know I'm going to want to report back and go, yes, I'm on day 200, or yes, I'm on, So that's one of those things that keeps me going, which is a really good transition into the thing I really wanted to talk about, which is ways to stay sane in this crazy world. So I basically ghosted my entire family on Facebook this week. I just pulled the plug. I couldn't deal with it anymore. So this goes into tip number 1, which is just stop things that are not bringing you joy. Now, I know this is a very pie in the sky kind of approach to life. Like, oh, I could just stop doing things that I don't like. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, I think a lot of people have habits or do things and they're in a pattern of negativity and they know it and they say it to themselves. Like, for example, I have been saying for years, I think, if not months, and I've gone through stages where I've attempted this before, where I say, I don't know why I keep looking at Facebook. It's draining me. It's draining me to just, it's just the way that other people use this technology that I think bothers me. I'm a pretty positive person, if you can't tell. And I try to be, like, I actually go out of my way to try to be nice, right? And I feel like learning as you get older that not everyone is wired that way and that a lot of people kind of feed on negative energy is a little earth shattering for someone who feeds on positive energy. It's just, and everyone's different, right? Well, it's so funny when I do these, I get emotional. It's really weird. But what I notice is my pattern would be, there's there's quite a few people on Facebook that give me energy. They're sharing positive things, or they're starting new habits, or they're just sharing pictures of their kids, or things that they're eating, or things that they're proud of, or artworks that they've done, or whatever. That is awesome. And then other people want to use it as a platform for positive change. Also awesome. But then other people just want to use it to complain about what they see is wrong with the world. And I don't mean complain in a constructive way. I mean just complain, right? There's a difference between complaining in a constructive way, like bringing awareness to an issue, versus complaining in a non-constructive way, which is just, did you see what so-and-so did? Or blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, to me, it's very draining. So my first tip is to stop doing things that aren't bringing you joy. And what I noticed was when I would, at the end of the day, or even in the middle of the day, or at lunch, or anytime I took a break, and I'm cycling through my Facebook wall, I was always leaving that few minutes less happy than I started. And I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? It's like an energy vampire in my life, right? So I just decided, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 days ago, I'm done. I need a break from this, and I'm not really good. Again, I know myself. I'm not good at just going, well, I just won't look. I say that, and then an hour goes by. Maybe I make it a day. Maybe I make it a day and a half. But at the end of the day, I end up going back. And then I'm mad at myself, right? So this cycle we see a lot. So I decided to pull the plug so I don't have as easy access. So for those people who don't know, by the way, you can deactivate your Facebook account. And it doesn't delete anything. It keeps everything intact. It just requires you, it kind of shuts down your profile so people can't see anything anymore. And it would require you to log back in. I mean, to activate it, all I have to do is log back in. It's not an earth-shattering process. But for me, that little extra step, that pause I have to take, kind of like the food journal, is what helps me. Because sometimes, this is really sad, right? But I'll go to my phone and just click on Facebook, just because it's the thing I've trained myself to do. And so I'll click on it and I'll be like, oh, that's right, deactivated. I can't see anything. And then it's like this great reminder. But you do, like, so for someone like me who kind of has built a support structure and a living really off of technology and social media, I still like the outlet. And so I've right now carved out a online Facebook situation environment that's working for me. So I have a secondary account that I have 0 friends. That's not true. I have my husband just so in case something happens, but no other friends. So there's literally nothing on the wall of this other Facebook account. And I refuse to accept friends. And I allow that account to manage my podcast account now, like Ronnie Ramble's Facebook page, and also my Greenlight Bites page. So I still get what I want out of this tool, right? I can still post pictures of my food and share positive quotes and, just have the positive aspect of Facebook, the accountability for me and the connection and the communicating with people who have similar interests. And so I still get that benefit without the drama of the wall where I have friends and cousins and coworkers sharing all their opinions just flying at me all the time, and then realizing that, oh, we think differently about that issue, or oh my gosh, I didn't know so-and-so thought that way, right? I could shut that down for a little while. So that's tip number 1 and how to stay sane. And that is why I deactivated my Facebook account. And I'm sure I'll be back. I'll come back. But for right now, I'm actually appreciating that one less layer in my life, if you know what I mean. So other tips of staying sane. So then this got me thinking about things that help me stay sane. So my next tip is to focus on the little things. And this is inspired, and I shared this post, I think it was Wednesday. It was earlier this week on Facebook. I shared an experience I had where I woke up and it was just one of those days that was really hard to get out of bed. I don't know. This week I'm just really drained. And I just woke up and had this feeling of dread just wash over me. I don't know why. Actually, I think it was Monday. Probably because it was Monday. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to go run. I'm just going to put on my shoes and I kind of went into that autopilot. Sometimes you have to put yourself in autopilot. I'm like, I think it'll be good for me just to wake up and go outside, get some fresh air and run. And then that's when I remembered there's these guided runs on the Nike Plus. I think I've talked about them before. And there's one called I Need a Win. And I'm like, yeah, I need a win. That was the right day. I know it's cheesy, but I'm like, I do need a win. And so I took the run. It was 30 minutes. And I did feel better. I actually cried on the run like a dork. But I did feel better. And right at the end of the run, oh my gosh, I'm going to cry. Even just thinking about it, I'm such a sap. There was this woman on this old-fashioned beach cruiser bike, and it was turquoise. It was really cool. It was just one of those cool with the big handlebars. She was and had a basket. It was just one of those things that you would see in a movie that you think doesn't really exist in real life. And she comes down behind. I catch her in the corner of my eye coming on the other side of the road. And I watch her, and she looks over her shoulder, and she realizes there's no cars coming. And this is a nice road that has this nice slight degrade. It goes downhill, but just enough to if you're on a bike, you get momentum, but not so fast that you lose control. And she looked behind, no cars were coming, and she proceeded to go down the middle of the street and just cruise. And it was the silliest thing. And she just kind of swayed back and forth. You could tell she was really enjoying it. You know what I mean? And I thought, oh my gosh, that just looks so fun. And then I thought, God, it was just a really the universe having, oh my God, I sound so crunchy granola right now, but it's true. It was this reminder to go, I got to focus on those little things. Things like that, cruising down the road on this fun bike with the breeze in your hair and stuff. So I'm not going to cry about it, but I am crying about it, which is really sad. So that's my second tip, which is focus on those little things. I noticed little interactions with my kids. Last night we played, my kids have rung me into Pokemon. Last night, they actually play, I know there's Pokemon Go on your phone, but they play the card game with their dad. That's their thing. I'm I'm not learning a bajillion Pokemon to learn this game. I'll play Rummy or Poker or something, but but anyway, they're like, Mom, let's do a family tournament. I was like, oh, okay. And so the 4 of us played each other, and then the winners were going to play, we had a little family tournament. And so I'm playing Pokemon, the card game, with my 9-year-old. And he beat me, of course, because I don't know what I'm doing. Every time it was my turn, I'm like, what should I do here? Oh, use my energy. Oh, do this. Okay. So anyway, he beat me. And then at the end, he says, Mom, that was the most fun Pokemon game I've ever played. I mean, talk about a little thing to focus on. Wow, I really am emotional this week. Okay. So that's my second tip. So stop doing things that are negatively impacting you that you can stop. 2, focus on the little things that you can. 3 is get creative. So for me, I've noticed this about myself. Cooking is my creative outlet. I've just accepted that now. Like I think I used to draw as a kid, and I don't know. I like to be creative and write sometimes, but no, cooking. Cooking is like it's like my canvas and my paintbrush. Like I realize this. Like it's a whole outlet for me. So I said to the husband when we were having so much fun cooking when the kids were out of the house for a couple of days, I said we should work on like a book. Like this is how my brain works. Like a recipe book, but not a recipe book. Like I have the Greenlight Bites cookbook, and that was fun, but it was like torturous for me. But I was like, I want to do a dinner party book where I actually give people shopping lists and recipes and ideas for a whole menu for a date night in with their partner. And I'm trying to make it easy, like, but yet indulgent. And I'm like, this will be really fun. And so I have found myself the last few nights before bed, I bring my laptop up to bed, which is probably not the best habit, but it's kind of where I unwind. And I just start researching different ingredients and menus, and I'm starting to build out 12 dinner party ideas, from cocktail to appetizer to salad to main course to dessert. And I'm going to try to build a whole year worth of one date night in per month. Does that make sense? So it's now become a creative outlet for me. And when I'm doing it, I'm lost in it. And I love it. Like I'm not getting news slung at me, or I'm not, it's like the opposite experience of Facebook, right? So on Facebook, I feel like all these things are flying at me and it's like overwhelming. This was like I'm hyper focused on this one thing that brings me joy. And I think that's a really strong way to stay sane in an insane world. So stop doing things that negatively impact you. Focus on the little things. Get creative in something that brings you happiness. Like, is it music? Is it drawing? Is it cooking? Is it crafts? Is it cross stitch? Is it quilting? Just find something that you really like and try to devote a little bit of time to it when you can. Okay, my 4th tip is be nice. This sounds like such a silly, but I'm talking like go out of your way to be nice. I find, and it's funny because it's a little bit of a chicken egg thing. Like I'm not sure if I'm being nice because I'm already in a good mood, or I decided to be nice and then that put me in a good mood, which I think sometimes is truly the case. So I will actually make a conscious effort. And I was doing this on Facebook. I wanted to start like a niceness campaign where you only leave positive comments and you actually ignore the negative. Like if you see something and you want to post something negative, just don't do it. Just skip over that one and then compliment somebody on a picture that they shared, or congratulate somebody who has shared an accomplishment. So in the social space, I try to go out of my way to be extra special nice, for lack of a better term. But in the real world, for again, lack of a better term, I also try to do this. And I find most times, 9 out of 10, 9.5 out of 10, it always brings me joy to go, my God, I really love your shoes, or your hair is fantastic. And when I like spontaneously compliment other people in the real world, it is such a boost for me in their reaction, and hopefully it's a boost for them. So go out of your way and be nice is my last tip, or not my last tip, my second to last tip. So again, stop things that are not bringing you joy. Focus on little things. Get creative. Be nice, like out of your way nice. And then the last tip I have is one actually out of the Wick Wick book. So for those of you who don't know, I published a book called What You Can When You Can. I'm not really in this mode of promoting it anymore. I don't know. It just kind of died on the vine. But one chapter in that book, which our chapters are they're like pages. So one idea in that book is to bookend your day. And so what I mean by that is to like start your day with something positive and end your day with something positive for whatever it is that you personally need. So for me, for a really long time, I was starting my day with a workout. It's just how I started my day. And then I would end with some light stretching or end with something, so you can kind of, whatever you do, like your day may be crazy, but you could take the first 5 minutes to do something positive and the last 5 minutes to do something positive. And so for me right now, I'm trying to get back into the morning group. So I wake up and I do something active. That's how I start my day. And now, the end of my day, I am unwinding with spending at least 5 to 10 minutes on my recipe book idea, my menu book idea. So that's how I'm bookending my day. And it's just like a little tip to kind of remind you to do something for yourself. So that's my last tip. So let's see if I have these again. Stop doing things that don't bring you joy. Focus on little things. Get creative. Be extra special and nice to people for no reason at all. And then bookend your day. Those are sorry, my nose is running. Those are kind of my ways to stay sane in an insane world, or at least that's my current approach right now and how I'm staying sane in an insane world. Okay, so moving on, I do have 3 movies I want to talk about. And let's see. One of them is an unknown horror movie I'm sure you probably never heard of. One is a famous movie that you probably already saw if you're into horror movies. And then one is a comedy that I fell in love with. Okay, so I'm going to end with the comedy just because it's so different. Okay, so first, I finally saw Dr. Sleep. Finally. So, oh my God, I promised myself I wouldn't do this, and now I'm doing it. But so if you don't know, Dr. Sleep is a sequel. Hold on, because my brain is not The Shining. Thank you. Oh my gosh, I could not pull that word in my brain earlier today. So Dr. Sleep is a sequel to The Shining. And so if you were a Shining fan or a Stephen King fan or a horror movie fan in general, you probably have already seen Dr. Sleep because I'm a year late here. But it's on HBO right now. And we have HBO Max. So it is the little boy from The Shining who has grown up. Now, I absolutely loved this movie, at least the first 2/3. Like, loved it. Like, I could not get over how much. I kept saying to the husband, oh my God, this is like way better than I thought it was going to be. It was really good. I love Ewan McGregor. He's the Danny, the little boy who grew up. And I like him in this role. He kind of plays, you don't like him at first, and then you kind of start to like him. But there was a line that he said that I literally stopped me in my tracks. You ever watch a movie and then somebody says something in the movie, you're like, oh my God, that was really profound. So there is a quote from Ewan McGregor, well, his character, Danny, in Dr. Sleep. And he says, our beliefs don't make us better people. Our actions make us better people. And I'm like, if there was ever a time that we needed a quote in the world, right? So our beliefs don't make us better people. Our actions make us better people. So I love that quote. In the sense of just reviewing the movie, I think it got really good reviews on Rotten Tomatoes too. I didn't realize that. I guess it came out when I was just not being able to watch movies. But like I said, the first 2/3 I really loved. And there's a little girl character in this movie. She's like a teenager. The actor's name is Kylie Curran, I think. I've never seen her. I don't think she has very many credits. She was fantastic. And then the girl from Mission Impossible, the girl, like Tom Cruise's girlfriend in Mission Impossible, Rebecca Ferguson, her name is, fantastic. So the 3 of them, Ewan McGregor and these 2 female actresses, I just loved their performances, and I thought it was really great. That said, without giving anything away, I felt like this movie, it kind of started off slow, and I picked up, I'm like, this is really good! And I was like, what is happening? So that's how I would describe this movie. It was like, this is pretty good. Oh, this is really, really good. And then, oh, what were they thinking? In my opinion. But I still enjoyed it, and I still recommend it, especially if you're a Shining fan, which, again, if you were, you probably have already seen it, so you could ignore me, and you probably have your own opinions. Okay, the second movie I'm going to recommend, I think it's on Netflix. It's called We Summon the Darkness. It's from 2019. Now, again, this was just a random pick. I'm just cycling through. I go, oh, that looks good. Actually, it might be on Hulu now. I'm gonna make sure for you why I'm talking about it. But it was. Let's put it this way. It's set in 1988. So, for people in their 40s, like me, this movie was right up my alley. Although I will say, I feel like, how do I say this? Like, they didn't really nail I felt like, okay, so they're trying to recapture 1988 with their, garb and hair and outfits. And they kind of do an okay job, but it looks like it looks like people from 2020 trying to look like people from 1988. It didn't actually look like people from 1988. Do you know what I mean? And now I feel it's hysterically funny for me because I'm getting so much older that I can now critique times in which I lived through and go, no, they wouldn't have really worn their hair like that. No, that outfit doesn't work. Like, I have this insider knowledge of what it was like to be living in 1988. Yes, I think it is Netflix, by the way. So this is what I'll say. It's not the greatest movie. Johnny Knoxville's in it, which is kind of cool. And it's the classic. If you remember in the 80s, everyone was afraid that there was like devil worshippers who were listening to heavy metal that were killing people. That's what this movie is kind of playing off of. And so it's kind of like a 1980s, like, there's a killer out there and these girls are going to a concert. And it got pretty good critic reviews. I think it's like a 69% on Rotten Tomatoes, but the audience was like a 30%, which I find amusing because I think anyone in their 40s probably likes it and nobody else likes it. So if you are a semi-horror fan and you kind of like 80s culture, or you lived through the 80s, I think you'll actually enjoy this movie. And it has kind of like a darkness to it. It's a horror, so people are gonna get murdered and stuff. So there's a darkness to it, of course. But I found it quirky and fun and dark, and it was a good watch. I actually didn't even mind the ending for a change. Like, it was good. It was enjoyable experience. Okay, so the last one was a movie I just watched with the husband called Booksmart. So this one's on Hulu. I'm almost positive. Don't kill me if I know. I kept notes, but not that good of notes. See, I'm getting better. I promise I'll get better. But Booksmart, or it might have been Amazon that it was on. I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm horrible at this. But anyway, the movie's called Booksmart and it came out in 2019 as well. Now, this movie is about two female leads. By the way, all the movies I had really strong female characters, and there's really been a trend, I think. I mean, of course, but I feel like more and more the movies I'm seeing have really strong female protagonists. But it's about two girls in high school who they're best friends, of course, and they are graduating and going to college, and they have never partied, and they realize this, and they've decided to have like one last. So it's like a classic high school blowout party comedy. This movie is surprisingly good. And I say that because I felt like it was too corny. It was too, I don't know, it kind of was like, it took elements from almost every kind of style comedy I've ever seen. Like, it kind of got cheesy, it kind of got endearing, it kind of went down those paths almost too deep. I'm like, well, now it's kind of too sad. And I'm like, oh, well, now they're just being crazy. And I'm like, now they're being, but as a package, it worked. I don't know why it worked, but it worked. And I laughed out loud in that movie more than I have in other movies. And I cried and I laughed, which is always a good sign of a movie. And it's also one of these movies where the supporting actors, you don't really know the two main actors. They're kind of new comedic actors, but all the supporting actors were like, I think William Forte's in it. Lisa Kudrow's in it. Anytime they introduce kind of a new secondary supporting actor just for a scene, I was like, oh, it's so-and-so. Oh, that's so-and-so. I was like, oh. So it felt like one of those comedic movies, like one of those movies where these older comedic actors are like passing the baton to like new comedic actors. One of those kind of movies. So that makes it's like an ensembled cast in a way. But I highly recommend it, and it got amazing Rotten Tomato scores. I think it's 97% critic. Like everybody loved that movie, and I like in the 70s for audience. And I think most people who probably listen to my podcast who are in the similar demographic as me would actually really enjoy it. It was a good watch. So I'm going to end on that mark. I'm almost exactly at 30 minutes. And I thank you guys for joining me this week. And I'll be back next week, probably a little bit more frazzled as I prepare for my college classes to get started in this crazy environment. So have a great day. Don't forget to do what you can when you can. And I hope I hope I'm bringing some positivity in your life. Bye, guys. Thanks for joining me.